So this is a little welcome to the Brassica family, a little introduction to the Brassica family that are found wild, forageable things that we can pick. It's quite a broad family and includes a lot of common plants that we would grow as vegetables, so things like kale and broccoli and cabbage and a huge range of those plants, which all came from the one wild ancestor many centuries ago, I think, possibly even thousands of years ago. But a lot of its wild cousins, as we would call them, are still available and are all, as far as I'm aware, everything in this family is edible. So they're called the Brassicas, Brassicaceae. They used to be called the crucifers, and that's because the flowers have petals in a little cross shape, so 4 little petals. So I've got 3 here that are very interrelated. These 3 plants are members of the sort of subset of brassicas called the bittercresses, and they all start with the name cardamine. So cardamine is their first name in Latin. A lot of them are quite difficult to distinguish the different types if you don't have some kind of like botanical lens to look in detail at the flowers, because they're such tiny little flowers. In a way, it's not too important because actually they're all pretty much interchangeable. They have slightly different flavours. So one of the ways to check if you've got a bittercress that you like is to have a little nibble of it. So this is one hairy bittercress. Now this is much bigger than the kind of specimen you'll normally see growing wild, because this one's been left to grow in the polytunnel. So this is all one plant. Well, the part of it's now fallen off. It has these kind of leaves down the bottom, which are called a rosette, which are kind of a different shape to the leaves that are further up the plant. The whole plant is edible, but you probably want to kind of start above the roots, although the roots are edible, but they take a bit of cleaning. Up to these little seed pods here. And they're called bittercress. These don't have this is hairy bittercress. It doesn't have a particularly bitter taste, but it is very like what you would expect of watercress. So it's got that kind of like tangy, slightly peppery flavour to it. And this is another bittercress here, which is slightly lankier, and it has slightly different rosette of leaves and slightly different leaves on the way up as well. And these are also really tasty. I've tried them. I'm going to try this one, see what the difference is. I would say the hairy bittercress here is a little bit more peppery, but this one's also very nice. Moving up the pepperiness scale, we've got this one which looks quite different, but is also a cardamine. And this is Cardamine pratensis, or its other names are lady smock or cuckoo flower. Now, the cresses are quite interesting. This one only comes up once a year, so you'll see this where grass has been left to grow. So a lot of people commented in 2020 that they saw a lot of these little purple flowers in places like golf courses and things like that, which hadn't been mown for the spring. But these come up and then they seed, and then the seed set, and then they're gone for the year. Whereas these are officially called annuals, which means they grow every year, but to them a year is 6 weeks. So these can be up and have set seed, and the next generation be starting in 6 weeks' time. So they tend to be, they're all over the place. Once you get an eye for them, you can see them everywhere. If you leave a tiny bit of soil in a corner, it's quite likely that a bittercress seed will make its way there and start to grow into a little plant. Whereas these are a little bit more special. These ones are a little bit kind of less frequent. Also so we tend to eat the flowers. They are very peppery. Like that's like a kind of like licking mustard, I would say, is the flavour of these ones. So these got a really strong kick to them. So they're beautiful. You can put them in a salad or something like that, and it's a bit of a surprise for people who don't know what the flavour is. If you ate a mouthful of these, you would definitely know about it. So from a medicinal point of view, as well as a flavour point of view, brassicas are often used externally because they're a circulatory stimulant, but they're also quite stimulating to eat as well. So they're good to get your digestion going. That kind of those strong, peppery, slightly bitter sometimes flavours really get your saliva going. So they're really good for your digestion. And then the final one we're going to look at in terms of wild brassicas is this one, which is, its name is very descriptive of the flavour. This is garlic mustard. Now I picked this yesterday, so it's looking a little bit past its best, but it will still certainly be very flavoursome. So if you take a little bit of this, literally the flavour is garlic with a kind of mustardy tang behind it. And I can barely speak because the mustardiness has got quite strong. So this is another one that's really lovely in salads, and you can also use it medicinally. You can make it into a poultice, and because it's got the kind of garlicky compounds in it, although it's not part of the garlic family, It's really good for respiratory conditions. So those garlicky compounds will go in straight through the chest wall into the lungs if you place them there. So you can get some of these, mush them up a bit so that it releases some of the juices, and place that on your chest, and that makes a really, really nice kind of poultice for just kind of stuck, cloggy, chesty coughs, that kind of thing. The other alternative is you can also rub it on your feet, which is something you do with anything garlicky, and you'll start to taste it on your breath quite soon afterwards, and that's a really good gentle way to sort of cleanse your respiratory system, especially if someone's just feeling a bit too sick to take anything externally and they don't really want something smelly on their chest. That's a good way to have it. But garlic mustard is Alaria petiolata, and it's also often called Jack by the hedge, and I think that's just because it's very, very prolific, and I think Jack was just sort of like a name for, Jack of all trades, anything, just like sort of, we don't really know what it is, just say its name's Jack. That seems to be the thing. So it grows quite prolifically around hedgerows, and you'll start to spot, so obviously the flowers that we've looked at that are the easiest to see are these ones on the lady's smock, which are little purple flowers. This has smaller little white flowers that start to come out around late April, early May, and you'll start to see lots of those around the top of it. It often grows in amongst nettles, and it can, at first when it doesn't have the flowers on it, it sort of merges in with the nettles a little bit, so keep an eye out. If you've got any nice patches of nettles around that you think maybe are just nettles, it's quite possible that they've got some of this garlic mustard growing in it as well. So that's our 4 members of the Brassica family.